Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on the greatest spectacle in racing. There's a new TV network, new presenting sponsor, a weekend of qualifications that had fans on the edge of their seats. Our insiders this week are Inside Indiana business contributor Bill Benner, also the TV voice of the Indiana Pacers, who's a member of the IMS radio network in Turn 4, Chris Denary, and NBC Sports and Racer Magazine, Racer.com writer Robin Miller. And welcome, gentlemen, and happy race weekend.
Yeah.
One and all. So 51 years this year of covering the race for you, Robin?
51, brother.
All right.
Me and Billy started at the Indianapolis Star almost together, and it was a production, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, we had 15 people out there, and half of them were drunk, and the other half had never seen a car before.
But it was fun.
It was great.
But it was fun. And 20 years for you on the radio network.
Yeah, 20 years. I started in the pits in 1999, and then when Bob Lamey stepped aside, I moved into turn number 4 18 years ago.
Wow. A lot has changed, obviously, during that time span. As you look at this, and Robin, I'll start with you, the big story, big takeaway, at least so far in the month of May.
Obviously, McLaren, the train wreck that was McLaren Racing, and Fernando Alonso missing the show. And, you know, there was people said, Gary, this is great. Formula One, they're so arrogant. We don't need McLaren. Yeah, we do. Yeah. We need McLaren because Zach Brown wants them to be a full-time team next year with 2 cars. And if Alonso's in the race, our ratings are just better all over the world because he is such a big star.
So yes, and I've heard a lot of people talk about that McLaren really needed to be in the race. However, the excitement at the end with Kyle Kaiser and all that provide a boost for the month and maybe a boost for interest heading into the race?
Well, you know, in this new era where we don't have 50, 60, 80 cars like we used to, and bump day's been reduced to what it is, I thought that was as good an outcome in terms of excitement, tension, emotion that you could possibly have. And Kyle Kaiser, that's a really, really great story. Robin and I, you'd say, who you root for? You root for a great story. That was a great story.
Yeah. How about your take on things so far, Chris?
Well, I think this isn't the 70s or the 80s, and I think what the Speedway has done, they still have tradition. I still like the bump opportunity, but they've modified how qualifying is run. And I think you had the rain, which hurt on Sunday, but by putting the Fast 9 shootout and then the bump day in the same day, I think it will be a recipe for success. We just have to let it play out here over the next few years.
Yeah, balancing that tradition and the new stuff, tweaking qualifications. There's talk been circulating about guaranteed spots.
100% agree. We should have 22 guaranteed spots next year because it's so expensive. It's so tough. The fact that we have 22 cars full-time in this series with the pathetic purses they pay. You know what you get for an IndyCar victory, Gary? Your team wins $30,000. They made that the Hoosier 100 35 years ago for a dirt race. So how do we get all these cars? I don't know. We got a lot of guys like the Mike Shanks of the world and Trevor Carlin's guys that are full-time racers, and they're like, we're going to Indy, we're gonna run full bore. And people are like, well, tradition, Miller, you've changed your mind, oh, you flopped it. No, this isn't 25-8, which was Tony George's war weapon to end the open wheel war in 1996. This is good business. And guess what? You'd still have bumping. It would have just been different guys this year. That's all.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're competing with one of those glamour teams or one of the guys that show up week in and week out, you ought to be able to make the race.
100% guarantee.
You ought to be able to make it.
Exactly.
Right?
And here's where I'm going to go on the NBA side. The NBA doesn't say, well, Lakers, Knicks, Bulls, you're in the big markets, you're in the playoffs. No, you have to earn your way into the playoffs. So I do like how they've modified tradition. I mean, just because you did it in 1975 doesn't mean you do it in 2019, but I still like the bumping. And I thought it was fascinating what we saw. And really the only regular driver that's out is Max Chilton, right? And that's it.
Yeah, and Jay Fry can't get enough credit for what he's done, Gary. The guy that he's the first guy in the 51 years. He's got common sense. He's got racing mentality. He listens to people. He's the one that tweaked qualifying because last year we were sitting there on Saturday. You got all these guys going out and running around for no reason. He's like, we're getting rid of this. So he's been such a breath of fresh air, and he's got this thing headed in the right direction.
What do we think about the interest level in the 500? Ticket sales, that's a gauge, certainly. Doug Bowles and the folks at the Speedway said they're kind of level, maybe up a little bit.
Well, it's no matter what the ticket count is going to be, it's still going to be the largest single-day sporting event in the world. It'll still be the greatest spectacle in racing. You know, again, we're not back in the old days and across the board. I mean, the whole culture with automobiles has changed, and muscle cars. People aren't, the millennials aren't wired that way anymore, and I think that's had a significant impact. So I think the Speedway is doing as good as it can dealing with this onrushing culture that's kind of overtaking us.
There's less than 200,000 permanent seats now, but there's a whole bunch of seats in the suites, and they'll all be full. There'll be 20,000, whatever, like Bill says, it's still the best crowd. They've been taking out full-page ads in the Star a lot, so there's tickets. I mean, it's not like it was just a couple years ago, and it's not like it was 20 years ago. But they raise the ticket prices this year every seat, so raise the purse, because it sucks.
I got you. Okay, how about the focus on the 500 in terms of the TV partner? You know, ABC for decades was the TV network. Big change now with NBC. You're all in media. I'd be interested in your thoughts on how NBC has done so far, because it's about TV, social media, internet, all those factors. This NBC platform, they seem to be putting a lot more focus.
Well, when you see them talk about it on the Kentucky Derby, when you see them using other platforms to promote the Indianapolis 500, I think the biggest key is every race is either on NBCSN or Big NBC. And I just think that's huge for the series. I don't think you can judge it based on just 2019. You've got to look at what we're going to see going forward. I just think it's a real positive. NBC's bringing a lot. When they bring Mike Tirico in, you know it's an important event. And I think that's a huge platform for the 500.
Yeah, it's on the Today Show was here. I got my attention. I was watching an NFL playoff game back in January when they ran a promo for the Indy 500. I went, wow, this is different.
Yeah, and Robin, you're working for NBC, doing work for them again. Your inside look at things.
The fact is that bringing Dale Jr. and Mike Tirico and Danica, Dale Jr. is going to get 2 million people. We're going to get 2 more million people to watch him drive the pace car. We just want him to stick around for the first 20 laps. So I've watched the promos, and I got to see some of them last winter as they were putting them together, and I just kept telling people, whether I work for NBC or not wouldn't make any difference. It's the best thing that ever happened to IndyCar racing, because ABC didn't care. Always bad coverage, ABC. Remember that. Now we've got better coverage, NBC, because they put a bunch of money in and they've made a commitment to be the motorsports network. They got NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, indoor motorcycles. They care about it, and it's a 3-year deal. And like Chris said, give it some time. It's not going to, but I think the ratings have been going down at Indy the last 3 years, the worst they've ever had. I think this year it's going to go up.
But here's the key in Indianapolis, and in that, 75-mile bubble, you have to us,
That's
the
right,
IMS Radio Network. So
and that's a great way to do it, because the network is tremendous, really is tremendous. What about the rest of the series, the IndyCar series, the NBC deal? How do you see that affecting the rest, the other venues, the other races?
We got 8 races on network, which is the most we've ever had, which is fabulous. I mean, we had the race 2 weeks ago, the road race, the Grand Prix. We had over 1 million people watch on a Saturday afternoon, and the race started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not the best TV time ever. And when you're on network, you're going to get 1 million people by accident. But if you put on a good show, maybe you get 1.5 or 2 million. Whereas on NBCSN, we get 500,000 or 600,000 people, and we're pretty happy.
Yep. Okay, quickly, you have to get our picks for the race.
I pick him every year. I'm going to do it until he's not racing. Ed Carpenter.
Okay.
Attaboy. Alexander Rossi is going to kick their ass.
Okay.
I'd like nothing better than in turn 4 to say Ed Carpenter is going to win the 500.
And I'll stick with Ed Carpenter too, because he's a fan favorite. Hey guys, thanks very much for being here. Bill Benner,
That's great.
Robin Miller, Kristen Airy. We'll be right back after this.